George Jackson, San Quentin Prison, May 16th.
Double Max, San Quentin. Uh, the principal contradiction between oppressor and oppressed can be reduced to the fact that the only way the oppressor can maintain his position is by fostering, nurturing, building contempt for the oppressed. That thing gets out of hand after a while. It leads to the excesses that we see, and the excesses that are growing within the totalitarian state here. The excesses breed resistance, of course. The thing grows in a spiral. It can end in only one way. The excesses lead to resistance. Resistance lead to brutality. The brutality really leads to more resistance, and finally, the whole question will be resolved with either the uneconomic destruction of the oppressed, or the end of oppression, the end of economic man. And that's what we're working for. Revolution must be fed. It grows in spirals. Confrontations, and I mean on all levels. The institutions that buttress the establishment, I mean on all levels, have to be assaulted. We don't have to contrive any. The particular thing that I'm involved in right now, the prison movement. The prison movement started by Huey Newton and the party. Huey and David and June, Pat Goliot, and the rest of the comrades around the country. We're working with Erica and Bobby. The prison movement in general, the movement to prove to the establishment that the concentration camp technique won't work on us, not in the 1970s. We don't have to contrive any importance to our particular movement. It's a very real, very, very real issue. And I'm of the opinion that right along with the student movement, right along with the old familiar workers movement, that the prison movement, substructural to the thing, on a whole, does have strong relevance to the whole question, the movement in general.
Many of the cadres of the revolutionary forces on the outside have been captured and have been imprisoned. Are you saying that even though in prison, that these cadres can still function in a meaningful way for the revolution?
Well, we're all familiar with the function of the prison as an institution within the totalitarian state. We have to destroy that function. That function has to no longer be viable. It's one of the strongest institutions that supports the totalitarian state. We have to destroy its effectiveness. And that's what the prison movement is all about. What I'm saying is that they put us in concentration camps. All right. But there'll be no peace in a concentration camp. None whatsoever. I'm saying that it's impossible to concentration camp resistors For example, we can go back a little distance. The internments during World War II. Let's go forward to the strategic hamlet and all the various means of concentrating populations to better control or to eliminate, liquidate, isolate the dynamic sections of the movement, the protagonists in the movement. We have to prove that thing won't work here, and the only way to prove it is resistance once inside, and then that resistance has to be supported, of course, from the street. It has to be understood that the function of the prison within the prison state, within the police state, has to be explained, has to be elucidated, has to be gotten across to the people on the street, because we can't fight them alone, and we can fight, but the results are usually not they're not conducive to proving our point, that that this thing won't work on us. From inside we fight and we die, but that's not the point. The point is in the new face of war is to fight and win. The guerrilla, the new type of warrior that's developed out of the conflicts of the third world countries doesn't fight to necessarily show valor. He fights to win. And he's fighting what we call the poor man's war. It's not a simple question of hit and run or of terrorism, or let me say counterterrorism. It's an overall question of proving to the establishment that there's no possible way for them to win with their techniques. We have to prove to them that wars are fought and won by men and not by mechanical devices. We can resist in here, and we're going to. There's not going to ever be any more peace in any place where I'm at, or any place where any one of my comrades are at. But we're going to need coordination. We're going to need help. And right now, that help should be in the form of education. I think it's important to elucidate to the people out there in minimum just how important it is to destroy the function of the prison within the totalitarian state. It does serve a definitely important function.
In an interview with some imprisoned Tupamaros, the question was raised about the decimation of the ranks of the Tupamaros by the comrades who were killed or the comrades who were imprisoned. Those interviewed assured the reporter that there were far more people joining the ranks than were being lost in these skirmishes, and that the movement was continuing to grow. Do you feel that same confidence about the party, about the revolutionary movement on the outside of the prisons now?
We are structured here inside of this system here in California. The thing that I'm familiar with here in California, we are structured, and our structure allows us to exist and to continue to resist in spite of the losses we absorbed, it was set up that way. And like I said, no, they can't win. Um, when we can, it's hard in an army or in a military type situation to practice or develop central democratic principles. Sometimes we have to be a little tyrannical with ourselves and with others, you know. But we're just beginning to learn, beginning to relate to each other, learn how to function together. And we're getting over the humps. But we are aware of the fact that, you know, the opposition uses the kill off the head principle, kill the body. And we've set up safeguards against that sort of thing. Well, I could die tomorrow, but there'll be 200 or 300 people to take my place, right? And it's an educational thing, educational and military. What we need, since the policy has changed inside the joints, where we've pressured the changes, really. They didn't give them to them because they wanted to. We forced the changes on them. And really it's tokenism, but we're going to take advantage of it. Any person on the street now can communicate and correspond through the mail with any individual inside prison. My suggestion is to bombard these prisons with clippings from papers, educational things to help politicize the comrades who aren't yet relating. Any letter that comes in the joint here addressed to any individual will reach him, and political material, clippings, printed matter gets through now. I think it's important to bombard these places now with that sort of stuff.
You disclosed, I think a few months ago, that you have been for some time a member of the Black Panther Party. Certainly the work of the Black Panther Party in the prisons of this state and other states, the work to free political prisoners, and of course the work in the black community have been factors that would have influenced your decision. Has the internationalism of the Black Panther Party been one of the key aspects of the party that attracted you to it? And if this is true, is internationalism meaningful for people in prison as one reason why they would relate to that party?
Well, let's take it a step at a time. Huey came to the joint, and upon his arrival, he'd heard stories about the little thing that we had going already. And he decided to absorb us. And he sent me a message and told me that I was part of the party now. And that our little group was part of the party. And that at present, my job is to build or help build the prison movement. And like I said, the objective of this movement is to prove to the state that we can't be concentration camp, that the concentration camp theory won't work on us, the strategic Hamlet theory won't work on us, and that it's impossible concentration camp resistors. The people here inside the joint, the convict class, have related to the ideal 100%. And we've moved from, not we, but I've always been internationalist. I've always been materialist. I guess I was materialist before I was born. But the other brothers who might have stopped developing in the riot stage they're now, moving into the same trends that you see on the street. And again, I emphasize it's important to start relating to and communicating with convicts here in a joint in general. Just bombard the males. They're going to stop it after a while. They're going to stop it after a while when they see what's happening. But right now, we can take advantage of the change of rules. Bombard the males. Send these comrades in here things that they can relate to, things that'll explain the situation. Ignorance is a terrible thing. And being cut off from the flow of the movement on the street right now is really detrimental.
And they receive mail from other countries?
Mail can be received from anywhere in the globe. I get stuff right now from Germany and England and France as a result of the book being published in these countries. And people ask me what they can do. I always refer them to the party. Oh, yeah. Well, the few copies of Tricontinental that we've gotten in, of course, they've helped broaden the scope and explained a few things for the comrades that they didn't understand. I mean, that we absolutely had no knowledge of. And 1, 2, 3, 4 Vietnams. Yeah.
That's
Well, it's one of our slogans now, and of course, that's a very ticklish point there. That's the point that really upsets the goons. You notice in years past, the moment that any black anyway would attempt to establish a link between our situation here in this country and the situation of the Cubans and the Vietnamese, let's say the Indo-Chinese now, the Chinese and the rest of the third world, the blacks that attempted these connections were immediately assassinated. So we of course grasp the significance of Tricontinental, and I believe it's very important for that sort of stuff to start coming in now. Education with these cats right now is very important. Concentrate on flooding this joint with literature relating to Tricontinental.
right. Despite the infrequent peaceful victories in Latin America, such as that of Salvador Allende in Chile, most people still believe that armed struggle is the only way most Latin American countries are going to be free. There have been some recent victories in the courts for members of the Black Panther Party, Los Siete de la Raza. Do you believe that the victories in the court
were appeasement? And Allende, the thing that happened to Allende, look, it was not a peaceful revolution. It's deception. Allende is a good man, but what's going on there is just a reflection of the national aspirations of the ruling class. You will never find a peaceful revolution. Nobody surrenders their property without resistance. And until the upper class in Chile is crushed, Allende could at any time be defeated. Long live the guerrillas, power to the people, Fencer Ramos, George Jackson.
I'm just taking?
It's my impression that the conditions in the black colony, especially the black colony in this country, are right now for a revolution. When we speak of conditions, of course, we're talking about, our people hungry, our people ill-fed, ill-clothed. And of course, I'm convinced that conditions are right just now. And it goes to the question you asked me a while ago, whether or not I feel Johnson's life was wasted. Of course I don't. For one, he felt he couldn't handle that job up there. I think the only mistake they made was thinking that all of the pigs in that group there, of 200, would have, concern for the life of the judge. Wasn't the one way for them to be stopped. That was to kill a judge. And of course, they chose to kill a judge rather than let him get away with it. The tactical error was, well, it wasn't really error because knowing Jonathan and knowing the way he thinks, and knowing that he's familiar with military ideals, I think he understood that it was always a possibility of one person starting the shooting and then the rest of them, falling in to support the one. Just one person firing a shot in a situation like that could bring on a barrage, or would bring on one. It was just a gigantic bluff, We're hoping they had a chance. But back to the conditions thing. That question there answers itself. I'm convinced that in the black colony, I think the black colony is the most revolutionary stratum of the lower class. I think they're ready for revolution right now. We just need some people in the front. Get in front of them and pull. People like Johnson. I definitely don't think his example should be buried.
The news today said that Tom Hayden declared in front of the National Student Association Congress that's going on now that there will be more kidnappings from courtrooms and prisons, like the one that John attempted to perform.
I've been thinking a lot about this situation. Did you notice that in the building, they froze the court, of course. They froze the court. Jonathan froze the court, and then with the help of the other comrades, they made it all the way to, down the 2 flights, 2 stories, down to the parking lot and into the truck. Do you notice that during that period, very little shooting was done? See, I think at one occasion, as they left the building, the pigs fired. Jonathan fired back, and then they retreated. They were just testing them to see if they were willing to, really willing to engage in killing and dying. See? And when they were convinced that they were, then they retreated. I think both sides fired into the air, I'm not certain. But it was a standoff all the way till they got trapped in the truck and until they, confronted the prison pigs. The most vicious pig on earth, the prison pig. No regard whatsoever for human life, none.
Is there any psychological testing or anything to become a prison pig?
No, of course not. They need, the state needs goons, and the guys that fall in there need jobs. That's the whole situation right now. Anyone can fall in here. A cat could fall in here drunk today and kill me and shoot me through the heart tomorrow if I let it.
Do you think there might be some kind of psychological disposition, like that certain kinds of people would be more inclined to want to take a prison job?
Of course. The preconceived notions about prison life in general, attracts sadists. And I guess the other percentage would be members of the lower class who couldn't fit into the proletariat proper. Men who are, mentally stable enough to work. You understand that they don't work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They couldn't sell insurance, sell cars, and so forth like that. They couldn't, stand on a assembly line.
What do you know about the charge that McLean was up against when in that court? What do you know about what happened with Fred Billingsley?
All right, we'll tie the Billingsley James McLean incidents together. You can tie them together. Billingsley was a brother who was murdered in February by the police. And James was on trial for reacting to that murder. He was accused of attacking a police officer a pig, excuse me, with the edge of the sword. He attacked the pig with the edge of the sword. And he was on trial for that. It's very significant, I'd like to interject here, very significant point. If it can be done, it might be interesting to get a hold to the transcript and be wary of alterations. There's no use in getting the transcript and thinking that you have it just the way it went down, see, without checking to see if there's any possibility of them changing or building a whole new one altogether. It's a real dramatic affair, the whole trial over there, from what I hear. The statements made, the confrontations went down, the way it's built up. James was he's a 37-year-old brother that's been subjected to shocks and strains of prison existence all his life. Prison existence and, victim of the system here, capitalism. All his life he's very aware. And, actually he was serving as his own lawyer. Self-taught, intelligent brother. And I believe that the trial transcript could be very significant, a very significant demonstration of what we're trying to say when we aren't getting justice in the courts, or we can't get justice in the courts. You're aware that the district attorney and the judge were related by law.
You found that out because of what went down there.
And the collusion is the collusion. Everybody, all of us see it. It's obvious for us. The collusion. The prosecutors and judges, and juries, and all working together. The grand juries especially. And the control that judge and prosecutor can exercise over picking of jury panels, impaneling a jury, the control they can exercise when they work together, completely eliminates all possibility of impartial trial. Listen to this again. And the vanguard is very much aware of that. And the people in general, black people in general, are becoming aware of it. McLean didn't intend to get caught, I don't think.
Why was Billingsley murdered?
I was saying that James, of course, didn't intend to get caught in the affair concerning Billingsley's death. But he was caught, and the impression that I get is that he wanted to use his trial as a demonstration of this thing that people are slowly becoming aware of the fact that the court process, the legal process, is just a farce. It's just a device used by the establishment to keep us thinking, in conventional terms, thinking that perhaps we can get some relief in conventional ways, in the established ways. You want to use it as an example. And contrary to what the pigs have been saying in the press, there were people there listening, in the audience, plenty of people there attending the trial. And some of the questions, the issues he raised, and the way he questioned the officers, and the responses that he got from the officers, the tendency of judge to object for the district attorney and so forth. All that can be read from the transcript, and I believe it'd be very educational for you to publish that transcript or make it available to as many people as you possibly can.
I begin with the idea that fascism has already taken over this country. It took over during the Depression, and all above ground political organizations has got to proceed. I mean, anything that's effective, that's really revolutionary. I'm convinced if it's really revolutionary, because of the existence of the fascist state, there's going to be resistance to every move that we make. Consequently, it's going to take a lot of brain work, footwork, to avoid the pitfalls and traps that the fascists are going to set up for us. I'm convinced that fascism exists in this country, and if you think about it a while, you understand that one of the principal cornerstones of fascism is disguised. There's two or three faces of fascism. The original thing, where it begins as a almost anti-establishment, intellectualized movement. Once it seizes power, its whole complexion changes into one of terrorism. The suppression of vanguard parties and demobilization of the lower classes. When it goes into its third state, as it has done here in the United States, I'm convinced that the United States has taken fascism to its apex. And we're in the third stage. We're living in the third stage here in the United States. And it's not necessary for the fascists to perpetuate themselves, to maintain themselves any longer with out-and-out brutal force. The impressions that we get from the movies and from the propaganda system that fascism is a period of doors being kicked down and people being gunned down in concentration camps, that's just a transitory period of fascism. Once it's established itself and is in power securely, then the whole complexion of the movement changes altogether. They have then control of the mass opinion molding machinery, and the upper classes have their governing elites to affect their ideals and to perpetuate themselves. And what is the essence of fascism is counter-revolution. Any real opposition political activity that's going to prevail after the fact of the emergence of the fascist state has to be very, very subtle, and it has to carry a threat, a latent threat. Anything that we do that is really revolutionary is going to be contested. I can give you 1,000 examples. I'm talking about the obituaries, the Panthers, and all the others. I'm convinced that fascism exists in this country, and consequently, my political approach to antithesis after the establishment of the fact of fascism has to be a cultural revolutionary thing. You have too many convinced Americans. Americanism is fascism in itself, right from the beginning. But we have too many convinced fascists in this country who are willing to protect it to the death. How can we attack at the productive point? An attack, a simple, direct attack at the productive point, at the plant, it's absurd. The interest is fortified. It's been fortified. The opposition is well aware of Lenin. Very, very, very up on Lenin, and Mussolini, the architect of the first successful fascist state, was at one time a communist. And who could possibly be the best architect of a counter-positive mobilization of people's movements than a fascist? A guy who's been trained than a communist, a guy who's been trained all his life in scientific methods of socialist organization. They're up on us. They know about our old ways of organizing. And then, after the war, the consumer's market, the cornucopia of cheap, mass-produced, the flea market. That's part of the continuing basis of compromise. Some people's demands are being met, see? And they're convinced that the American way is the right way. As fascism emerged and advanced and took hold, it became impossible for us to use old methods. They're up on Lenin. I'm convinced that from here, where we stand right now, the only way to advance revolutionary consciousness or reestablish the feeling of community reestablish our class consciousness, is to create revolutionary culture. I believe in the commune, the ideal of the central city communes. And through the communes, as we fill in vacuums that the power elite or the governing elite and the upper classes have left, as we fill in these vacuums and give people something to hold, something to defend, as we extend our programs into the significant areas attacking property relations, we'll be striking two blows at one time. We'll be re-educating, as you emphasized. We'll be re-educating, and we'll be preparing the people to defend themselves. This is the whole thing about the people aren't ready. Now, it's a presuming that the people aren't willing or capable or have enough brain power. If they haven't the thought capacity to act in their own defense, and we counteract this by giving them something to defend, something to hold. And as our programs extend into the significant areas of property rights enjoyed by the fascists, then we'll be moving into military activity. For an example, I'll give you a brief example. What uses a rent strike if we allow the pigs to move in and beat everybody up and set them out on the street? You dig? You know what I'm saying? It's very simple to convince the people with our political elements that they should withhold their rent. There's a positive material gain for them to go along with the program, but we make no advance whatsoever in revolutionary consciousness and class consciousness, rebuilding of class consciousness. After the fact of fascism, it means that we have to first reestablish class consciousness, or revolutionary consciousness, or whatever you choose to call it. We have to reestablish the sense of community. Fascism destroys the sense of community, and among the lower classes, and then the upper classes, they strengthen their sense of community. The so-termed diversification of stock ownership. Well, what it did actually was create a great community of interest among the upper classes. They are no longer interested in the survival of their one individual concern or firm. Fascism means that this upper class is now concerned with the general survival of the whole business system. This is a business-based elite, a business-based upper class. And they no longer compete with each other. They have a great community of interest. We have to establish a community of interest of our own from the bottom. Consequently, that means advancing along a cultural, revolutionary, communal form. And it makes a great deal of sense what Huey Newton and the brothers are saying. We have to prove to the world and to this country and to the fascists that the concentration camp technique will not work on us. That's our whole job right now. Later on, once out, it'll be a little different. The term Soledad Brothers, get this clear. The term Soledad doesn't apply to us three only. You understand? It applies to all those brothers down in Soledad who've been making moves and who are working on the idea that concentration camps won't work on black folks and oppressed people here in the United States. That we're just not going for it. We're together. We're all together. All our cases together. And when you say Soledad Brother, you'll have pictures on the wall of not just the three original Soledad brothers, but all others who've fallen in line. You understand? And it should be worked from there. Soledad Brother means all those there in Soledad who participate and who are trying to break down that thing there. Pursue our present goal, the proof that it won't work on us. In the future, when I get out, we go to a new level. That means liberation of political prisoners. Long live the guerrilla. We are not acting individually inside the prisons here. We're all together. And we have perfect discipline, and we have rank and file. The rank and file is necessary. You'll never get anywhere without it. And I think that the failure of the last 50 years the failures that allowed fascism to emerge right out in front was like, well, we can contribute to lack of discipline and lack of the ability to create a policy out of 1,000 conflicting opinions and subjective interpretations of what is. We have to have the chairman. We have to have the central figure who's capable of seeing the real or distinguishing the real from the apparent.
Well, they're in a position where they're not pressured into giving us some sort of appeasement, and that, of course, catches the prison personnel, staff, the pigs here up in Cross. They have no way at all whatsoever now to protect themselves except through sheer, brutal, open terror. You understand what I'm saying? The comrades here, the pigs feel the comrades here have lost their reservation, their hold.
They still feel that?
But they're convinced of it now.
Maybe not for the last week.
Right. I'm talking about the whole state. I'm talking about throughout the state. You've heard about their intentions to strike. They intended to strike and ask for an increased wage. What do you call it? The hazard pay? Wait. It catches the prison pigs up in a cross. They know that the courts are in a mood now to appease. They also know that the comrades don't fear the courts any longer. That forces them to revert to terrorism, out-and-out terrorism. Just 2 days ago, they beat one black almost to death, sent him to the hospital.
One of the things that people on the outside are wondering is how you can use your case and other cases to work as an organizing tool. I mean, without without bypassing all means, legal means, court means, mass action, and stuff like that. How can people on the outside? What kind of things can they do to make real changes in that kind of stuff and put checks on them?
Well, it fits right in with the monumental problem, the monumental historical problem, the antithesis, taken in a whole. Our opinion is that the reason we haven't been able to move forward is because left-wing factions can't unite. They just haven't been able to unite here in this country, and very few other countries. And we've been hoping that on our substructural level, the substructural level of the prison movement, we could possibly provide an example for the rest of the movement. And because the oppression of the need to unite in our particular substructural level is overt, clear. Mm-hmm. We're faced with overt, clear terrorism, oppression. And being that our need is greatest, we figured that we're hoping, we have been hoping, that we could, first through the leadership of the Vanguard Party, we could first involve the community, show the community that the differences that the National Advertising Council has convinced us that our present really are illusion. We want to convince them that in the community that the differences are illusion. Of course, we run into some snags. The snags being, as far as I'm concerned, being part of the press mentality in general. The things I've noticed, the problems I've noticed, generally center around the fact that people don't quite understand what democratic centralism is. They seem to, now our ideal is to project ourselves into the future, of course, but at the same time we have to realize that, we have to understand that we're not quite all capable of, all opinions are equal. and we have to have some sort of centralism. Our preference, of course, is democratic centralism. You know, and people don't understand that that's a necessity at this stage. That what we're working towards is the point where all opinions will be equal, all men equal. But right now, we have to have the guidance and the purposeful leadership of a vanguard party. Like Lenin says, Central Committee, you know, General Staff of the People's Army.
How do you think that kind of vanguard party can be developed, or do you think that it has been developed in the Black Panther Party?
I'm Black Panther, of course. Vanguard party, I'm going to say Black Panther Party.
Do you think that the Black Panther Party is a vanguard party for just the black community and the white community?
No. I believe pretty soon all those questions, as far as I'm concerned, will be cleared up. The paper is going to run a series of articles where I discuss the nature of fascism in general, and in particular, towards the end, the form that it took here in the United States. In one paragraph or two, you would find a statement that, one of my principal beliefs is that the fact that we're the most oppressed class, most oppressed segment of society, the fact that we're at the bottom of the pyramid, we have to take the initiative. Is that background noise?
Yeah, no, that's okay.
We're going to have to take the initiative. I feel that our job is to begin the process. Once the process is begun, once we've provided the example, it's my hope, or our hope, that the intercommunal ideal is spread from our community to yours, the other community. But of course, we know what the term vanguard means. It puts us out front.
Well, there's in one interview by Lane Brown in San Francisco paper, The Good Times, she made a statement that they asked her what she thought of weathermen and their actions. She made a statement that she said, I don't know what the weathermen are doing, but I know that they're not the vanguard party, because they're not the Black Panther Party, and the Black Panther Party is the vanguard party, and thus they're not the vanguard party. And a lot of people were wondering about two things: one, her concept of vanguard party, and two, the reasons that she didn't know what weathermen was doing, assuming that they are engaging in some sort of revolutionary activity.
Well, I won't try to second guess Elaine's definition of vanguard party, but I just gave you a brief I just gave you a brief summation of why I feel that Black Panther Party and the Black Panther Party, of course, is the largest black organization in the country, and it's of course, really only black revolutionary organization in the country for the reasons, like I said, that we have to be vanguard is that we're faced with a clear-cut oppression, a clear-cut necessity, objective necessity. Objective and subjective conditions are correct in the black community for revolution. To get to your original question, though, I think that the real reasoning behind Elaine's statement is that if you consider the focal motor theory, if you go back and consider it, you see that the idea the idea incorporates two separate thrusts, a political and military thrust. The focal motor, the initiative, the push, the motor of the revolution has to be backed by a political force. You understand? When the man steps out, and with the idea of providing example, and there's no one in the background to fill in for, to build dual power. You need to rebuild the people's world as he destroys it. Where you at? You're left with nothing.
Well, that's the question that was posed to weathermen at that time, and that's why they changed.
Here's the whole thing. The whole thing is the Fokomoto theory. The Fokomoto theory incorporates the Fokomoto theory incorporates well, it's a monumental idea that calls for some understanding. The old CP attacks the Weathermen for being counter-revolutionary, and the basis for their attack, I think, is altogether incorrect. The real reason why they can't be and aren't more effective is that they have no organs for political activity. They have no political outlets. The point is, while destroying the opposition or the establishment's capacity to produce, at that same time, we're supposed to be also rebuilding the people's world. That's the political people's job.
Yeah, there's, in relation to that, there's a lot of, in terms of the white male left, particularly the middle-class white male left, to many, the primary form of oppression to them is alienation from life in general and seeing genocide go on in front of their eyes and them in a position of powerlessness, even if they wanted to do something, although they've been told that they shouldn't. That's a very, somewhat intangible form of oppression, though it's very real. And it's kind of hard to organize around concrete things, to benefit, to set up real programs. How do you think a white community, so the white youth culture community, can organize around real changes that have to be done around prison reform, about building the party, about building, survival programs pending revolution? Although that means a different thing in white community. I mean, survival, freaks are surviving, they're getting welfare, and they're smoking dope, and, thinking it's real groovy.
You know what we're talking about? We're talking about objective conditions. And what you're saying is that the objective conditions in the white middle class aren't correct for the political programs and the political thrusts that are possible in the black community. And you're asking for, or you're asking for alternatives. But I feel that when we start talking about objective conditions, I don't think that we should separate what I term psychological or subjective conditions too much from objective conditions. I'm saying that a man can get mad enough. A man can get mad enough to fight over what you called just now, let's say U.S. involvement in Indochina and so forth. A man can get mad enough to fight over that.
U.S. involvement in what?
Yeah, U.S. involvement. All right. All right. But that whole question follows the statement I made a while ago. We'll have to provide the example. And
that was Weatherman's objective.
We'll have to provide the example. The programs and the organization of political structures and so forth will have to begin with us, because that's a follow-up of my statement. We'll have to begin with us because the objective conditions are correct with us, and we're hoping that the other communities will be affected in some way. All right, their motivation, like you say, it doesn't have to be a overt, let's say, starvation. It could be psychological.
Yeah, it goes very deep too. Like in Berkeley, what we've been setting up, or what has been set up for the past few years, is street clinics and street auto mechanics and those kind of things to organize it around the community. But we find that people who use that are basically just freaks, kids, and that the people in Oakland don't relate to them. And we'd like to be able to change that, although they're very skeptical.
I don't think we should discount either. I don't think we should discount that the broad sections of American middle class, I don't think we should discount the fact that they're also economically strained.
Economic what?
Economically strained. Their economic position is far from secure.
Oh, that's clear. That's clear.
Hmm.
But like
The
this.
point is that the revolution is offering them economic security. I'm certain, positive that we haven't gone beyond the point where the revolution no longer in this country is separated from the economic motive, man.
No, I don't think it is either. Sometimes people don't look far enough though, and don't look.
Of course, the average white collar worker sees only the short term, or the average blue collar worker sees only the short term interest. I understand that, but I believe the political point would be to make him see that there is still a very clear and present economic motive for revolution in this country.
I won't discount that at all. But like in your article on withdrawal, one concerning that, in the white movement, there's been a lot less national mass actions. Like the moratorium thing, rallies for Bobby, stuff like that. There's a lot more smaller groups with a lot of personal struggle around the way we fuck ourselves over. The way men in the community fucking over women, the way that we're not dealing with the racism that's in us in terms of struggling around black people's demands. And so what we've ended up with lately is kind of May Day actions. I've been reading about that and that kind of stuff. And there's, on the other hand, the Days of Rage, the Weathermen riots in Chicago, 8 people were shot fighting, pigs and stuff. And every once in a while, people get pissed off enough and rioting on the Aves on Telegraph Avenue. And people are a lot wondering what the ramifications of those kind of actions are and what real changes they're going to bring about.
I think that any type of practice, any type of mass action is productive, because remember we were speaking of changing attitudes. We were speaking of objective and subjective conditions. The fastest way to change any conditions that aren't correct, I believe, is with trauma. Keep them in an uproar. You keep things disrupted, and let that be the normal state of things, disruption.
Yeah.
So I subscribe to all forms. I support personally. I support all forms of disruption.
Right.
But not at the same time. Don't get the mistaken idea that I'm also subscribing to apolitical actions or apolitical activities that don't have a clear-cut political purpose, that aren't working within a clear-cut political matrix. But really, in my wildest imagination, I can't see how any type of disruption in this country wouldn't fall within a purposeful political matrix.
Like there's a couple of stages that people go through, at least in the white movement. The first stage may be outrage, finding out what's been going on in Vietnam.
That's the very first. Yeah. Not just with Vietnam, but also with the culture, American culture.
Reading your book, looking what's going on with the Indians in the Southwest. I mean, we could sit here for an hour listing them off, but the next stage is how to organize around dealing with some of that stuff, and that's where people fall into a snag. I got a feeling that people don't understand the concept of process a lot.
I agree with that. The protracted idea. My politics, of course, is Panther politics, of course, is a combination of Mao think and Guevara think. The two-stage revolution, and then, of course, the focal motor thing. Do we need to talk about revolution in 2 stages?
Well, it's a long thing.
Yeah, it should be on
Quite a
the
few
order.
stages.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about Mao's theory of revolution in 2 stages, making the necessary alliances at first with any group or any segment of society that's in opposition to or that's being exploited by the principal enemies. I'm talking about the men who have placed themselves at the center and above society, the fascist manipulators. First, pulling these people together with, in some cases, with using the loyalty instinct. In other cases, pointing out the similarity in our conditions, reaching for the entente, reaching for the reconciliation. That's what I think of in terms of mass action. But following the mass action and the destruction of the unrighteous. The second stage, of course, would be the socialization stage. I don't think we should worry right now that all of the people that we're allied with be strict Marxist-Leninists, just so that they're loyal to revolution. In reading Mao, you see that everywhere he's absorbing. And in some places, even the comprador bourgeois, and points all the way to almost to suicide. Almost, he was compromising with the comprador bourgeoisie, the international bourgeoisie in China. I'm not saying that we do the same thing, but that's what basically that's what Comrade Huey Newton was saying in his article. His article relating to black capitalism. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people misunderstood that because
I didn't.
I
think I misunderstood that. I
Did you?
very clear on it, yeah. I mean, not that I misunderstood it. It's just that I had a lot of trouble understanding the concept.
Everybody that misunderstood that, have not read Mao Zedong's theory of revolution in 2 stages.
I know a lot about Mao Zedong's theory, but it's just a question of being in touch with the black community and where the black community's at, which is another thing.
Yeah. But you understand that the guy that owns a drugstore on the corner, even the guy that owns a... Just a minute. Let's leave the drum go.
Hey, brother, how you doing?
Thanks out to the people.
Nobody's here to see you.
Right.
All right.
I'll
get the drill.
I was right in the middle of another.
Drugstore on the corner.
Yeah. Even the guy that owns a shoe factory. I'm talking about the black. They aren't capitalists, of course, because where do they buy their leather from, their rubber, their string? Where do they get the building from? Where do they the machinery? See? The opposition at present is that guy that's making the machine tools, the huge few families that own around the country, the men that send out expeditionary forces all across the world to rip off about 80% of the non-renewable resources in the world. That's the enemy right now, not the little black cat in the corner that's trying to survive, really. He makes really no more in income than the average one of the world, actually. Of course, if we want to compare ourselves with China during their revolution, then we could call, I mean, I'm speaking in black right now. We could call the Nixon's black capitalism, or Nixon's black capitalists. We could call them the comprador bourgeois. But of course, they're slated for destruction after the first stage, after we get rid of the real enemy.
All right. So the basic concept is that attacking the most heightened contradictions first, and then deal with
the smaller contradictions later on. The socialization process comes later on. But really, behind the ideal is that we need allies. We need allies. That's what it is. We can't isolate ourselves. That's what he's saying.
There's a couple of problems that some people have been discussed in the last couple of years. One is
Wait, before you go any further, the articles that Comrade's been putting out in the paper, and he's been putting forward for us to try to relate to and understand. The principal intent is to isolate the targets of revolution. That's his intent. That's his whole intent right now. To isolate the targets of the revolution from the forces of the revolution. You dig?
Mm-hmm.
So, in misunderstanding that article on black capitalism, it's almost to miss the whole technique behind our thrust. We're trying to isolate the real targets of revolution, and at the same time gather the forces of revolution. Go ahead now.
In terms of gathering the forces, there's a lot of division in movement. Let's say take just the white community alone. Women, particularly, are not into uniting with men who constantly oppressing them sexually, and constantly treating them as sexual objects, and won't deal with them other than in terms of a fuck, and that's kind of hard for a woman to deal with, and they shouldn't have to deal with that. What can be done with that? And also in terms of white people, black people ain't going to work with white people who are racist and who ain't even deal with it. It's understandable that white people are going to be racist. It's understandable that men are going to be sexist when we've been brought up that way. But the question is, what point is liberal? What point is being liberal?
No, that's a big question. That's a two-part question that I'm laying to go into. How much time do we have?
We got time, too. It's an important question. It's one of the most important in the movement right now.
I think that
one of the criticisms of the Black Panther Party has been anti-gay people for one.
No, I don't think so. If you issued a statement that he's willing to join with anybody who's against the establishment.
Statement and practice are two different things. Sometimes.
Of course, they're two different things. It's practice that's important.
And a lot of white people are freaked out about practice around that. It happened around the Revolutionary Constitutional Convention and other.
But do you understand that the term vanguard implies an attempt to get out in front and pull the people into the proper kind of activity. When that attempt fails, all we can do is attempt again, try again.
And under
you can't accuse any members of the policy-making body, I don't think, anything like that. What we're trying to do now is get ourselves together.
I'm not trying to make any. I don't want to accuse anybody. I'm saying that when things happen like that, it's understandable, and that's the way it's going to happen. Mistakes are going to be made. The question is, how are they going to be dealt with, and how are effective modes of criticism, unity, are going to be carried through?
We're going to reanalyze this whole woman question. We're going to reanalyze the whole thing. I think there's a big difference between the woman question in the black community and the woman question in the white community. It's a big
For sure.
difference. But I'd like to reopen the whole thing all over again.
It's open in the white community. Yes, I don't know that. It's open.
I'll admit that everybody has to admit that men do in ways fuck over women emotionally, psychologically. And but the reverse is also true. See, I think the responsibility should be shared.
Let me get this up here. Addicted to these goddamn things.
I'm a change smoker. I think that if we reanalyze the question and stop being so really head up and emotional about it, that we can see that I think that we would be able to see that the psychological torture, the emotional oppression is a two-way thing.
Do you think one could be a reaction to the other?
They're interrelated, they're connected. But now, what I'd like to point out is the roots of the problem. Let's go back. I don't think that Marx dealt with it sufficiently. I don't think that Engels dealt with it sufficiently. I'm talking about right now I'm talking about the formation of the family, the state, so forth, from the beginnings. I'd like you to consider right now the very first group of women, or let's say the first woman, or the first group of women. Do you think that any man at that time, well now we're going way back, right? Do you think that any man at that time could have talked his woman into destroying his child or destroying their children? Who really did decide who should play what role? And what's oppression? What is oppression in this particular vein right here? I think it's really messing over an individual to give him a role, teach him a set of responses
Sure.
that he will not later on be able to live up to, and that's what's been happening throughout history
Yeah,
with this role.
Yeah, people understand where that comes from and who benefits from that. That extensive labor force of all these women staying home cooking for Rockefeller and then.
Oh, you see what I'm saying, man? It's a possibility that somewhere way back down the long line that a female came up with the idea of oppressing us by putting us out there on hunting grounds to match our skills and strengths with animals, or put us out there in the fields, right?
Yeah, a lot of it's also the question of who's winning and who's losing.
Well, I was saying, I think that if we reopen the whole question, launch a brand new dialectic and try to rediscover all the ways that we are fucking over each other, oppressing each other, that we'll find that we have very little to accuse the other of, and that's particularly so or true with the black community. What Huey's comments in the write-up on Sweetback, I think they were pretty poignant and pretty clear. In our case, with the black subculture being a matriarchal culture, in our case it is the women who are going to have to stop emotionally oppressing their sons and emotionally designating roles that further enslave or that further oppress us. What he was saying, I feel in essence, was that the only way that the black woman is going to ever be liberated is standing in the arms of a liberated man. And the only way that can ever take place is for her to raise a liberator instead of a coward.
A lot of women like find it impeding the efficiency of their social practice when they're working with men, and men will not relate to them as comrades. They find it hard, if not impossible, to do good political work. How can that be resolved unless the men start dealing with the stuff that comes down?
I consider myself the focal motor, and I won't go any farther. But I have no problem whatsoever in relating to women as equals if they can show themselves equal. But I feel that same way about men. Did you? I feel the same way about another guy.
Yeah, but see, one of the reasons that women sometimes initially aren't exemplary revolutionaries in early stages is because they've been brought up in such a fucked up society, and the society's told them, you can't make revolution. All you can do is wash dishes, and that gets pumped into your head so long that it's very hard for you to get out of that.
I breezed over that too fast. Maybe I breezed over that too fast. I'm not going to ask her to wash any dishes. If any dishes we wash in our military safe house, we wash them together. I concede all that. If she's willing to stand beside me and pull the trigger, it doesn't call for more than 3 pounds of pressure to pull the trigger on a constructed rifle.
In political discussions about what to do.
I'm speaking strictly from the military.
Well, say we're in a military situation and there's men and women involved and decisions made to do something. or is being made, and women are not are intimidated from speaking, and men are pushing a lot harder and stuff, and not paying attention to what the women are saying and not giving validity to the women's ideas.
That's not valid at all. You cannot ignore an individual that's standing beside you with a gun. You just cannot do it. I'm saying this, that it's impossible for a man to fuck over a woman if she's got a gun too. You dig what I'm saying? I've got a gun, she's got a gun. I cannot push myself in front of her. That's a physical impossibility.
Well, even say putting out a newspaper, when decisions are made, political decisions that are made that could have far-reaching effects, and women are intimidated from saying they might not have a gun, but they're intimidated from
psychological intimidation from the past, things from the past. It's heavy. It's really heavy. I understand that, but I'm saying that the only way we can begin to resolve the contradictions is with practice, and I'm saying that the first step in that practice is focal activity, revolutionizing activity.
It's also true that one thing was when you're say you're in a military group, it's very clearly important that the people know and understand and can and love each other in engaging in that kind of activity, and that or also
live a normal life in spite of the fact that you're at war. I understand. Look, like you say, it's heavy. Wrapped right up with this same question is another problem that we as blacks have. The ideal of just what is disciplined behavior, and what is authoritarian behavior. The average black he's repelled by the ideal of discipline. I'm talking about the ones in the movement now. I'm talking about the conscious brothers. They find it hard to discipline themselves and relate to the fact that structure has to exist for anything purposeful to go forward. The two things are wrapped up right there together. In the woman question, the way things are going to usually generally end up is that some man will be heading the cell, and the contradiction will start right there. But the two questions are wrapped up. The question of discipline, the need for discipline in order to move forward with real purpose, and then the question of how did and why did the male end up in that position of trust, the position of power, or the position where he was, where he is giving the orders. It's a complicated, heavy thing, but I think that we're going to have to learn to reconcile ourselves with the fact that from the smallest units, from the smallest cells on up, we're going to have to relate man, woman as equals, and it won't be easy. It's got to work itself out. But the only way it can really work itself out, I'm convinced, and I sure hope nobody mistakes this as male chauvinism of any type. But I think the only way the problem is going to be resolved is that women become more aggressive. And I'm not talking about aggressive in the sense of being counterproductive, man, and disrupting. I'm talking about coming up with valid criticism and valid ideas and valid contributions.
A lot of people are interested in what's been going down around your defense committee and what's your position on various defense committees and how they're functioning.
First, I'll take ours in particular. Our ideal at first was to involve, of course, the order came down to involve the community as much as possible, to give the community the responsibilities that we felt would help involve them in anti-establishment activities. The idea was to introduce them through our little substructural movement. The idea was to introduce them to anti-establishment in general. Um, on the supposition that later on, as things progress, they would move logically into higher levels of anti-establishment. You dig what I'm saying? You follow?
Yeah, I also think it happens.
Well, it broke down. It didn't work.
Yeah,
It didn't work. Well, the reason it didn't work, well, we know why it didn't work. The reason it didn't work is because of a lack of understanding of democratic centralism. See, we right in our midst, we started drawing people who we consider and who were definitely opportunists, and then others who were anarchists. And nothing can be done with opportunists or anarchistic behavior. The ideal of a committee where everybody is doing their own thing, this is counterproductive. Behind the idea, from the outset, we should have clarified from the outset behind the whole project. We should have let it be known that we were working under the discipline of the Black Panther Party, the Vanguard Party, and that's the most recent move has been to correct that mistake right there. Of late, we've published a declaration and sent out notices to all the committees that from this point forward, they can operate, but they have to operate under the guidance and under the review of Central Committee of Black Panther Party. That's the only way, the only possible way for the centralizing, ordering effect to reach down, to the grassroots level. That's the only way it can happen.
How do you think the actual practice of the committees will change?
Repeat that.
How do you think the actual practice of the committees will change in nature?
Let's hope that questionnaire will have to be, of course, solved by the Central Committee of the Black Panther Party. How effective will they be in harnessing these forces? I'm certain that from now on we'll go forward.
What kind of programs do you think will new programs, and what kind of things will be initiated now that the change is taking place?
Well, the emphasis, of course, now will be put on what we've been trying to emphasize all along. I'm talking about myself in particular. That our particular defense there in that courtroom isn't as important as the ideal of setting up projects to keep this sort of thing from happening.
Why?
I'm talking about the survival programs, our infrastructure in the black community. Funds raised and so forth like that. I feel that funds raised and activity going on around our case, I felt right from the beginning would be more productive if they were channeled into our principal survival programs. I felt that I could be represented best as an individual who stood for the survival of the community, and who is always going to stand for the survival of the community.
Do you see like the legal motion and stuff?
I don't deal with it at all. Don't relate to it at all. I have a lawyer who's very competent in that particular area. I let him deal with holding the fascists off, stopping the gunfire, keeping them from murdering me.
There are those who feel, and I'm among them, that it's probably real important that you get out with your ideas, and these ideas be able to be presented to the community. And a lot of people don't see that as a contradiction to doing political work and building the survival programs and other programs. And what about that? You must be into that too.
In other words, you're saying that there's a possibility of me martyring myself if I don't concentrate more on the legal aspect of the case. Is that what you're saying?
Well, Yeah, there's a possibility of you monitoring yourself, but it's not a question of concentrating more or less. I'm not clear that it's a contradiction to work to
It's
exhaust
not,
all
that's,
needs.
that's just what I was going to say. It's not a contradiction. If it's to our interest and it's to my interest, it is, to let the people know that I stand for and always will stand for their survival. And I think the best way to get that across is to, in one or two places where the party has the community pretty well organized, to let them know that funds from raised from our particular efforts went into the construction of this particular cottage industry or this particular clinic. You dig what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the final explosion, when it comes to the point of whether or not I'm going to survive or whether or not I'm going to, I'm not depending on them to surround San Quentin and snatch me out of here. I'm depending on the vocal motor. See?
Mm-hmm.
We need to say anything else. But it really pains me to be misrepresented. And I feel that
Heard what happened around that.
I feel that I haven't been misrepresented in support in areas where people were carrying on the little button wars and pamphlet wars and counterproductive activity in general, pie sales and so forth like that. All right, all those things are good. And if we're gonna have a raffle, let's raffle shotguns.
Dad.
I don't want to seem this overtly critical of the Weathermen, because I dig them. And we're not going to compete over who's the vanguard party. That's not the point. The point is right now is unconditional freeing of the people, liberation, and how we can build the day we talked about a while ago. I'd like to offer this as a possibility. It is a possibility that Bernadine and the rest of the people involved and the weathermen see the focal motor theory in a much broader sense than we see it. See, we're relating to it as it relates to us in our particular condition. We say the objective conditions are correct in the black community for our revolution today, that all that's missing here and there are a few of the subjective. The objective conditions are there. The subjective conditions are missing here and there. And we're moving forward on that. With our programs and with our movement. And by movement, I mean the shootout on Central, August 7th, and all attempts to, and all actual efforts made to put the fascists to death. But like I was saying, perhaps the weathermen do understand the focal motor theory and are looking at it in a much broader sense than we are. Like before when I said the ideal embraces in its essence, in its heart, two distinct entities, a political and a military thrust. One can't exist without the other. That's why, Che died in Bolivia, because he couldn't get the political infrastructure that he needed to support his military thrust. But let's say with this last comment that perhaps the weathermen are viewing the world situation. Perhaps they're saying that the objective conditions may not be absolutely right in a white middle class community, but the conditions are right in the black community, and the conditions are right in the world. I think I would be the first to know if there was. I'm saying that there was no conspiracy, that Jonathan, a 17-year-old man-child, was working according to the dictates of his own mind. In fact, I'm convinced that everybody around him was making a tremendous effort to clip his wings, slow him down. I think most people saw that thing building in him. The loss of confidence, loss of faith in the processes that were going on. The court appearances in the Salinas and the way we were being treated. I tried not to emphasize the foul treatment when he was around me. But
well, it seems to you then that this is something that it took a long time for Jonathan to come to the point he reached last Friday.
It built over a period of time. It built up over a period of time. Seeing the processes there in Salinas, Campbell, and Brazil, I think enough to shatter anybody's faith. I think racism is a control device, control mechanism, create an atmosphere whereby they can control the inmates. And black is just a continuation of the same thing we've been going through on the street. While I was incarcerated under a 1 to life, a term they called for 1 to life, where I could have done 1 year and been released. I've done 10. That's more time than anybody in this state has ever done on a 1 to life. I went to school, program, but now on the side, I was studying things that I felt that would help the community.
Was the incident for which you're charged now, was it a revolutionary act on your part?
You're asking me to confess to something? As a
Unless you want to, did you kill the man?
Look, one of the most important elements of guerrilla warfare is to maintain secrecy. I've killed nobody until, it's been proven. And they'll never be able to prove anything like that.
I'm saying that there was no conspiracy, that Jonathan, a 17-year-old man-child, was working according to the dictates of his own mind. I'd be the last one to say that Jonathan had suicide in mind. I'm certain that Jonathan felt that the police would have some concern, would give some concern to the lives of those 5 civilians. I'm thinking that Jonathan was trying to demonstrate to the public, to the people, just how he felt that these problems should be solved.
The letters to my family, my mother, my father, sisters, my brother, Jonathan, they were intended to familiarize them with the situation I was faced with here. Of course, here in prison, we see the repression, the exploitation, the victimization of lower class peoples.